Everyone, Adam here, Subwizard Podcast. I have another interview for you today. This one's a little bit different. We're doing a documentary for this interview. This movie, First Year Checking, came through from a PR company that we do a lot of work with. And at first, I didn't turn it down, but I kind of put it to the side because it's not genre. You know, we generally do pop culture, geek culture, of course, things of that nature. And then I got another email about it, so I was like, okay, what's this all about? And First Year Checking follows, well, Grayson Messner, who is the son of Michael Messner, the documentary's creator, on his first year in youth hockey, where they finally, or not finally, I guess depending on your point of view, but where checking is part of the game. Up to a certain age, checking's not part of the game, checking becomes part of the game, and it's this brutal transition. So it interested me. It was a cool documentary subject. It was one I hadn't heard about, and you hear a lot about football in CTE and concussions and things of that nature. And I'm a big UFC fan, and of course, that's a huge concern in the UFC, and they do everything they can to reduce the effects, even though half of the UFC is taking punches to the head. So I really wanted to get into the documentary, and I guess this is my mini review. I'm obviously recommending it. It was really, really well done. It was really cool and absolutely fascinating, even for someone like me who doesn't even have kids and isn't a huge hockey fan, which they'll probably take away my dual citizenship to Canada just for saying that. So I got to sit down with Michael and Grayson Messner, which I also thought was really cool because it's the father-son dynamic. It's the documentary director-creator and the main subject of the documentary, and it's also a coach and player relationship. So these two are kind of covering the whole gamut of the entire topic. It was a fascinating conversation. It's clear that they're both passionate about the sport. This is not knocking hockey in any way. And it was really interesting to get into this thing that I personally haven't heard a lot about, and I feel like, even without being deeply involved in sports, is not talked about as much as it needs to be. So stick around for the interview. Even if hockey is not your favorite thing, even if you're not super into documentaries, this is a good one. It's worth sticking around for. Enjoy. Hey everyone, Adam here, Subwizard Podcast. I'm sitting down with Michael and Grayson to talk about their new documentary, First Year Checking. How you guys doing?
We're doing fantastic.
Pretty good.
I appreciate you taking the time to come on because I found it really, really interesting. So it's a lot of stuff we can get into.
Thanks for having us. It's awesome.
Definitely. I guess to start at the beginning, catch people up a little bit. Grayson, you've been playing hockey, it looks like, your entire life.
Yep.
And Michael, were you always the coach?
Was I always your coach? I think the first year I was not. And then I watched and I was like, oh, these guys aren't doing it right. I got to get down there. So I think for 1 year I wasn't. Then I went down. And this actually year is going to be the first year that I'm not coaching him. So he's probably really looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And how did the idea for the documentary come up? I mean, you guys were probably living this life, I imagine.
Well, you know, I lived the hockey life for 40 plus years. I know everything there is about hockey, or so I thought. And I've also done some documentaries. I've done a lot of work with in video my whole life. And to me, every good documentary takes you to a place where you haven't been before. And for me, it turned a little different. The hockey world turned completely a 180 for me when my daughter started playing hockey. And then I learned that at the 12 and 13-year-old level, after she had been playing for 3 years, they introduced this thing called checking. So for those who don't know what checking is in hockey, it is when you physically try to take the puck from another player. So if Grayson has the puck right here, I try to slam through him, get the puck in any way that I can with my body. There's a lot of times you'll hit him in the head or do some other violent things that is introduced now into hockey at 12 and 13 years old. When I started playing hockey, we started checking right away. So we were young. Our bodies were, they were very malleable. Actually, you could take a hard hit when you were 6 or 7 and you didn't know much about it and you weren't trying to kill each other. So at this age, they've studied it for a while and recently decided to say, okay, we're going to eliminate checking at the very young ages. We're going to start it at this 12 and 13-year-old age level, which to me is a really different. It's kind of a bad idea to start at that age because some kids are 6 feet tall with mustaches. Some were more like Grayson, who were 4 feet, 5 inches and smaller and not as developed. So the testosterone's flowing. You can get killed at that age level. And for me, coaching my daughter's team as she was going through it, I was like, oh boy, this is really scary for a lot of these kids. Now, my daughter was a very good skater. She was strong. So she handled it pretty well. But there were a few kids who got concussions, broken bones. And to me, the worst part is there were 2 kids who quit the game of hockey altogether after going through that checking. So I said, all right, when Grayson goes through this, I'm going to start filming for the first couple of weeks, maybe the tryouts, and see what happens. And sure enough, during the first tryout, there was a concussion. Some other people got hurt. And Grayson did a really good job of explain. It takes a while with young kids to get their real thoughts and their real feelings, but he did a really good job of explaining. This is going to be a little bit scary for me, and I think all kids and all people who have gone through contact sports, I think they can get something out of this film because we all face those fears. We all try to get through it, and in the broader scope, I'd like to make the game of hockey a little bit safer. And so the governing bodies can see, ooh, maybe we need to do a little bit more like some other countries are doing because we're not protecting these kids as much as we can. So that's how the idea came about. When my daughter first went through it, it was scary, but she handled it okay. Kids quit. And then I started filming Grayson right away and filmed him for 1.5 years. And he got sick of a camera right here.
Yeah, 1.5 years could be a long time for that. To follow up on that, your daughter switched to a league that didn't have like hard checking like that. Is that right?
Well, yes, girls hockey does not technically have checking. You can rub the player out along the boards, but there's no big boom hits. There's no the player's coming here and then another player is just completely blindsided or hitting the head. So with the girls game, it is physical. It is a physical game, but it's not like the boys game where you are in danger. So yes, she went to a girls team. She actually won a national championship with the Penn's Elite. We had to go all the way to California. So she had some good success with that. And it also overall gave her the actual checking experience, gave her a lot of confidence outside of hockey, which was fascinating for me to see. And she's a very confident young woman.
It kind of seems like that life skills thing. I mean, maybe this is jumping ahead, but it seems like that life skills thing was a big push of your documentary that, yes, we have to deal with the initial problem, make it safer. But the reason why it's worth making safer and not just going on to some other sport or some other game is that you can learn those confident, strong life skills, kind of similar to like learning a martial art at a young age. You know how to handle yourself. And
that's such a great point. And I'm really close with the Penn State hockey coach, Guy Godowski, and he puts it in a way in the film that's much more eloquent than I can. But basically, it's that all of these players, they all have some kind of common bond that they face this fear, they overcome, and they gain much more than they would have if it was touch football or touch hockey. So that's where my dilemma comes in, is there is such a benefit to these contact sports that it's well worth it to have them. Okay. But there's also parts to it where a young child who's 12 and 13 getting hit, you can see the size difference. There are players who are my size going up against him right now. And if I hit him with my shoulder in the head, his brain could go against his skull in a bad way. So there is such a beauty to it, but there's also so much danger to it right now that I'm a little scared for them, but I'm also scared to lose it. So people have come out against me saying, "Oh, you're being a baby. Let them be men. Boy, this is how they become men." But there's obviously more to that. In the documentary, you see that Canada in Ontario has eliminated checking at all levels of youth except for the AAA level. There's 3 levels of hockey, basically. Well, there's much more than 3, but AAA, AA, and single A. And AAA is the best players. So in Canada and Ontario, they're keeping checking in that level. At AA and single A, at the youth levels, they have eliminated checking. So we're still doing it in the United States. We're still going full-fledged checking at those age levels. And if Canada, who studies hockey a little bit more than we do, I think, has eliminated it to make it safer and also to grow the sport, right? My daughter's team had 2 players quit. I've seen players quit when checking comes. If you're trying to grow the sport, and you have places like Seattle now who are going to explode with youth hockey, California's exploded, Nashville's exploded, Florida's exploded. If you're trying to really grow the game and you want a kid to start playing at 13, maybe where that checking is coming into play, they cannot go into a game or a practice with other kids who have been skating for 5 years and expect to be safe. And you have to keep it safe for them, but you can't. In my mind, you also can't eliminate it. So it's a parent dilemma. It's a courage dilemma. It's a helping them grow up dilemma. So it's I really found it fascinating, and I could still probably even do a follow up on it.
Oh, I imagine there's a lot to follow up on with it. The 13-year age cutoff thing, it seems like that would be the time when a lot of people just say, this isn't the game I signed up for a few years ago, I'm out. So Grayson, credit to you for sticking through it, especially being on the smaller side, because I can relate. At your age, I was 80 pounds soaking wet, and I was always scrawny. I just said sports are not for me, and I didn't have any kind of physical confidence until my 20s when I started exercising and realized the benefit. So credit to you for really sticking through it, even though it got rough.
Thank you.
Definitely. As far as a follow-up, did you look a lot into longer term effects? Like maybe someone who is in their mid to late 20s now, like is there pituitary gland issues or growth plate issues that they went through at that young age, taking those hits?
Yes. That is a good question. This was, there's a lot of documentaries with a lot of talking heads nowadays. This one, I really liked following him and us seeing them, and getting into the more analytical didn't seem to work. My partner, Barry Reese, and I kind of talked about it, and he said, let's stick with the emotion on this. You've got something here with the emotional connection you have with your son and taking this team through their first year of checking. But we do have people in the film from the Mayo Clinic talking about it and the dilemma that they're faced with, and that when they're advising USA Hockey on what to do. But there's obvious negative effects the more time you're getting hit in the head. So the greater time you can lengthen that, if you can make it 16, 17, when the brain's a little more developed, that might be a better idea. If you can do it younger, that might be a better idea. But they all seem to think that this is an age where your brain is really developing, and when you get damage to your brain at this age, it's much more detrimental than when it's fully developed when you're 21 and 22. So there's not enough studies on it. There's not enough research on it. And I don't know if anybody's actually putting the money into it. So we've got to open our eyes a little bit more to this. So the documentary is a little more emotional than the analytical. I think I could go down a really analytical path and have something pretty unique there as well. Maybe a short, but I think there's something there. I think you're right, Adam, on that.
I am with you, though, having the emotional connection, the fact that it was a big part of a father-son story, but then also get into the other players, in Grayson's age group, really made it more interesting. I mean, I don't dislike hockey, but I don't follow hockey regularly. I don't watch hockey. But I was hooked to it because there is the personal story. It wasn't just, clinical information delivered dryly, like it was a story. So it made it a lot better to watch as a piece of, I don't want to say entertainment, but it did have that entertainment value.
Yeah, it has. These things have to be entertaining in a way. You have to somehow keep the kids watching for that long, because we've had distributors say, okay, we'll cut this film down into 88 1-minute segments, because that's just the audience of film this day and age. And I was like, no, we're not going to do that. You can't develop.
Throw it up on TikTok.
Right. Yeah, that's what they wanted to do. And that's actually a pretty good offer. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll think about it for a second. But we wanted to keep the film together. We wanted to influence kids who are now watching this film, who are going into their first year of checking, have them have kind of a mentor in Grayson who was really honest and said, yeah, I'm scared of this. This hurts. I need to go get an x-ray. That real emotion of 12 and 13-year-olds, it's hard to get, because quite frankly, you can't get permission to shoot in depth with that kind of an age group. So luckily for me, he didn't have a choice. So to get the insight from 12 and 13-year-olds was also kind of a unique thing for this film. And actually, a lot of the kids participated in that way, and they were really helpful. And I think them sharing this helps all kids who are going through contact sports, or all kids who are facing adversity, understand that they're not alone. They're facing this, and it's okay to open up about it. It's okay to be afraid. And once you overcome that, if you do, it's great. And if you find another way to get through it, that's okay too. So yeah, it was fun. That's for sure.
It is interesting that as you're explaining it, as your documentary explained it, it seems like whoever made the decision almost went out of their way to be like, what's the worst age we could put this on? And let's do that. Because like you said, if you go younger, you don't have all the testosterone and hormones and everyone at different stages. And if you go older, then everyone's kind of, almost catching up to each other. So it seems like they just picked that sweet spot where it's the worst idea.
Yeah, Grayson, how big was the biggest kid you went up against, do you think?
Probably like 6'2", 6'3", maybe.
And so we're talking a 6'2" kid going up against Grayson was 4'7", 4'6" at the time. So if they have bad intentions, bad things can happen. But in the documentary, you'll see sometimes they just run into each other, and one kid's on the bad end of it, and tough luck. So it's a scary age, like you said. It's like I think it's the worst age.
Yeah.
I might like to see it delayed. I might like to see it eliminated. I might like to see it start younger. I think there just needs to be a little bit more of a focus on, okay, let's concentrate. Is this safe or not? One other thing that was brought up after the film, which we could bring up in another film, would be what they do in football is pretty simple, and that's, it's the weight limits. So you have 80 to 100 pounds as a weight limit, 100 to 120 pounds as a weight limit. The problem that they first had when hockey was, first doing the checking, was they didn't have enough kids to be able to silo them into these weight classes. And they actually do now. There's so many kids. It is such a big sport, and it's only growing, that we have to protect them as soon as we can.
I did want to bring up the football comparisons, because it seems like that's the next sport that has the same kind of contact. I mean, I guess an average football player might be on the larger side, but they're also not moving as fast. So it seems like it's kind of the same hit.
Yeah, and for some reason, it seems like you're a little bit more ready in football. It seems like, especially at the line, this is going to happen. In hockey, it can happen if he's looking that way and I'm coming at him a different way. It can be so sudden and from the wrong angle, and your head can bounce the wrong way, that it's just different than football. Football, everything's kind of in front of you. You're kind of ready for it. I'm not going to say you're ready for it, because I've seen some clips recently of some Oklahoma type drills where kids are going one-on-one, and there's a really big kid against a really small kid. So, but they're trying everything they can, because they know that sport's in danger. A lot of the kids are going to hockey. They're going to soccer. They're finding other sports because parents think, and they are right, that football is so dangerous. But yeah, it's a question that we need to look at deeper. The one other thing that I didn't really delve into that deeply in the film, but the referees have a tough job.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing that they talk about trying to, we both actually became referees, just to see how hard it is. There's only 2 officials. There's 300 rules. So when it goes from non-checking to checking, these officials now have to look at offsides, icing, parents screaming at them. Oh yeah, here comes a check. Was that in the shoulder? Was that in the head? Oh, I don't know. If that was a head check, I'm going to have to fill out a report after the game, and that's going to take me much more time. So there's all these factors of the referees looking at the checks or not even seeing them. We had a case in Detroit this past year that one of our players got checked, hit in the head, laying on the ice, concussed. And I said to the referee, how can you not call that? He said, I didn't see it. The other official didn't see it. He said, Coach, listen, I have been trying to get 3 officials on the ice whenever checking starts for years. He said they will not pay the extra $80 a game for these kids. He said, I wish we had a 3rd official out here who was just looking for penalties, looking for head hits, not only to call the penalty, but if the kid gets hit in the head, he should be sitting. You should take him out. That game is not that important. So if that official sees, okay, he got hit in the head, coach, we're going to give a penalty over here, but also sit that kid out for a few shifts, sit that kid out for a period, make sure he's all right. So instead, we don't have that. I don't see it as a coach. They come to the bench, they say, oh yeah, I'm fine. He's out the next shift. And that's where the real danger can happen on a second concussion right away. So yeah, it's such a beautiful sport. I don't want to make it sound like we're bashing the sport. He just got off the ice. We love it. We're always surrounded by hockey. So in a big way, this is a love letter to the sport and a love letter to all contact sports. But I think there's some focus that we need to adjust for sure.
Do you find that having to wear the skates, because you're also balancing, which kind of puts your ankles at risk and everything, and also the pads, because I know one thing that's been coming out about football in the last, I don't know, handful of years is that they hit each other a lot harder because they're wearing the pads and they feel like it protects their brain more, like it gives them confidence. But they're now finding medically that that's not exactly the case. Like using your head as a weapon is never really a great idea.
What do you think, Ray?
No, it's not a good idea at all.
What happened in Erie to you?
Oh, a kid sat on my head one time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So the equipment is very good. You're right. And I think it does make them feel like they are indestructible. The shoulder pads are massive, but very protective. Some people suggest that you eliminate more of the padding, like you said, even the face mask, and you will really appreciate when you get hit in the head or in the face, and the hits will actually go down. Now, I don't agree with that.
No, I wouldn't say remove protection. Just try to teach people not to rely on it and use it as a torpedo.
Yeah, and the helmets they're really strong. Everything's really strong. So you're right. But no matter, they protect your face from cuts and nicks and all that. But just like in football, we see when your head is slammed up against another head, that doesn't mean there's nothing in your helmet that stops your brain from squishing against your skull. And that's where the concussions come into play. That's where the really serious issues come into play. So yeah, that's a great point. The equipment does make them feel indestructible because they don't feel what their brain might, be susceptible to. So that's a great.
The adrenaline even help ward off headaches until after the fact. So you might feel great, but you're hurt.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a tough one. It is. That is such the dilemma. That's such a reason for having this film, for us to shine a light on it, for people to look at it. So hopefully the right people will take a look and maybe study it a little bit more. And I think they will.
Yeah, I think so. I think maybe now that football's getting the attention, because it's in America a little bit more of a popular sport than hockey. So maybe now hockey is going to be kind of going with that momentum to catch up and start fixing some things.
Yeah, and on the professional levels, the NFL is doing a better job of protecting their quarterbacks, protecting their receivers, protecting their skill guys, so that you can't take a late shot at the quarterback. You can't do those things. Whereas the NHL, it doesn't seem like in the playoffs, at least, they're protecting their stars as much as other sports do. And if you want to grow the sport, you got to have the scorers, you got to have the stars be the front and center. So when a guy like Sidney Crosby in our town was out for a year, you were a little less interested. You wanted to see him on the ice. You didn't want to see the big checkers and all those guys. You want to see the beauty of the sport. You want to see the Connor McDavids flying up and down the ice. They don't do a great job of showing how fast the game is. It's hard. It is hard as a camera person to capture that. And that's one of the things that I tried to do during the film was I got the cameras down on the ice. I was moving with the players. So when they were doing these checking drills, we're in the corners with them. You're kind of seeing and feeling what it's like, and you're seeing their reactions after they get hit. And do they get up? Do they not? So on the professional level, they still need to protect their players a little bit more, in my mind, and make it more of a beauty game and less of a goon game, which is what Canada kind of loved and kind of what it did grow the sport, and the fighting grew the sport and all that. But have a little bit of faith in the game itself because it's so dang beautiful.
Yeah, that was an interesting aspect that you put into the documentary that I never really considered, is that when you get, especially a younger kid who's got a lot of pent up aggression, if all he's focusing on is smashing the other team, he's not focusing on passing or scoring or shooting or doing anything that he really should be doing.
Yeah, and you don't well. The other thing about starting checking at this age is Grayson is a very good puck handler. Okay, but before the age of 12, when you're stick handling the puck, all you're doing is you're stick handling with your head directly down, looking at that puck. So the coaches are always saying, you better pick your head up. You better pick your head up. And they don't really get why you better pick your head up until that year of checking. So in that way, it's a totally different game. So you have your head down, you're stick handling, and then all of a sudden you're getting killed. Now, if checking was introduced when you were way younger, when you first touched that puck, you would probably have a better skill of keeping your head up and flowing through the traffic in a better way than putting your head down and saying, oh, I can just stick here and do all that I want, when you're going to get absolutely hammered. You learn that lesson as soon as you get hammered once. I better get rid of this little puck because it could hurt, or I better learn how to stick handle with my head up. So in that way, the game changes completely as well. So it is such a weird dilemma. And obviously football, when you first start playing football, you're tackling because it's such a big part of the game. So in hockey, should we start it earlier because it's such a big part of the game? It's still not answered. I hate to give it away, but it's still not really answered. But getting the kids through it and teaching them how to respond from tough situations was still a pretty rewarding thing for me.
Grayson, when you started the checking version of the game, did you find that the way you played changed like across the board?
Yeah, you can't have the puck for too long. You have to have a quicker shot and just think faster.
Think fast, yeah. More situational awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I cannot believe how big some of his teammates and some of the players were. I mean, how big is Emmett? Emmett Martin was one of the kids in the film. How big is he?
He's probably like 6'4", maybe.
So he's 6'4" at 12.
Yeah, it's most adults don't hit 6'4".
I never will. I keep trying. But yeah, so the playing field's uneven. And I don't know when it's going to get even. He's 5'4". There's now 6'4", 200-pounders. He's still in the 125-pound range. But I'm so much more confident with him on the ice because he's gone through this year of checking. So he knows how to handle it better. In a lot of ways, I'm thinking, okay, maybe they should start checking earlier because he can handle it now. Going into it with from just turning that switch on is a scary thing. And I don't know if a lot of these kids are ready. And like I said before, there's no requirement for how many years you have to have been skating before you can check. So I think there should be, you can't have that 12-year-old starting hockey right away going into this check hockey world. And you want kids to be able to start and pick up a sport at 12 and 13. That's still not too old to start a sport, is it? Right? People pick up sports. You hear about them all the time, picking up a sport late and becoming exceptional at it. You just can't do that in hockey because you have this skating aspect that you better be proficient in, or you're going to get injured.
Yeah, it's like almost like you have to learn a whole sport and then add hockey onto it.
Yeah, you have to learn how to stand up in hockey before you can. I mean, you fall so many times just learning how to skate. So that's why it's such a cool sport as well.
All of that does seem like really strong arguments to start everything younger, because at 6 and 7, you're going to pick up the skills. If you do fall, you don't have that far to fall. You're, a lot more limber, like you were saying. And if they do introduce checking at 6, 7, 8 years old, most of the kids are going to be around the same size, and they're really not going to be going to rip your head off and hitting that hard. How hard are you going to hit at 6?
Yeah. And at that age, if you teach the coaches, anytime there is anything anywhere near the head, anything above the shoulder of a hit, that kid should be eliminated for that day. Sit him down, tell him how wrong that is, that you cannot check somebody in the head. Then you'll have a base of, okay, we have years and years of learning the head is off limits. So right now it's like the first time anybody's in a fight, you just keep trying to hit the head. So when you're playing hockey, these kids are trying to check right in the head. They're going for the mask. And if they have had that base from when they were 6 and 7 years old of never hit the head, never hit the head, they do a really good job right now of saying never hit from behind, because that's when kids got seriously injured. So you do not see kids getting really hit from behind anymore because of how well USA Hockey did with pounding that into every kid's head. Don't hit from behind, don't hit from behind. And there's even little stop signs on the back of jerseys. So if I see that stop sign, okay, I better not even come close to any contact there. So you're probably right now that we're all thinking about it. It could be a better idea to start it at that younger age.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm not a medical expert, but it just seems logical based on what I've learned from your documentary. And it kind of circles back on the ref issue you were talking about, where if they had harsher penalties for these things all the way through, like the guy already got rid of the puck and you really smash him into the boards, like you're not just going to get 2 minutes out, you're, 20 minutes out or done for the game, whatever it is. If you make it really so they have to think twice, but then it's that catch-22, then you need, 5 more officials and.
Yeah, and well, maybe you don't. Maybe you need everybody watching that and them being human beings and saying, okay, we're 6 and 7. We saw that player do the head hit. Let's sit him down. But I think they're really doing it in football now. They're saying anytime you're leading with the crown of your helmet at the smaller age groups, anytime you're hitting in the head, you're really getting reprimanded. You're really learning that's not how to play football. We don't have that in hockey. We don't have the eliminate the head as much as they did a good job with hitting from behind. They're not doing that with the head hits with this first year of checking. They're just trying to flip the switch, say go, and you're going to be totally good at it. So there's going to be concussions, there's going to be injuries, and your child might be one of the ones who has the brain injury. So good luck. So that's not good enough.
Yeah, no, that's a really kind of callous way to be about it.
Yeah, they're good people. They have so much to do, but they need to put a little more money into this, or just a little more research than they arbitrarily decided that 12 and 13 was the right age a few years ago. And I think they have to be grown up enough to really re-examine it. And say, let's start it earlier for some groups. Some groups, USA Hockey is the governing body for hockey in the United States. Some groups in Minnesota have broken away from USA Hockey. They said, we're going to do our own thing. In Minnesota, they are starting the checking earlier. And so maybe it is time to examine how those kids are doing, and see, do they have more injuries, less injuries, any head injuries? So, yeah, I think we could re-examine what's going on there, because now we have a case study of at least a year or two of kids starting at that younger age. So I think there's enough out there. I think we just got to put some more eyes on it.
Yeah, I think things like your documentary are going to start to have people, maybe even just the parents of the kids, getting involved more in like, oh, hey, hockey was a rough sport. I accept that, but there are things we can be doing. Yeah.
And as parents, you don't know the right time, and his mom is better at it than me, of deciding when to really be hard on them and saying, okay, you have to overcome this fear right now, or when do you just let them do it by themselves? When do you push them into that contact? Will they ever figure it out themselves? There are some kids who may never figure it out, and that's okay. But there are some kids who need a little push. So you say, go and get physical in there. And there are times to say it. And as a parent, it's a tough choice as to when to decide when to push your kid and say, you need to be tougher. That's such a hard thing to tell your kid, because you don't know. I don't know what it's like to go up against a 6'4" kid when you're 4'6". I don't know what I would do. I know that I had larger players on my teams growing up, and I skated the other way. So as a parent, do you say, get in there? Is that going to be better for him? Will that make him tougher? I don't know. What do you think, Grayson? Was it ever a help when I was hard on you and saying be tougher?
No, not really.
How did you overcome it?
Just go for it, I guess. I mean, I don't really know.
It's just sort of a natural thing that you felt?
Yeah.
All right. Do you think you're over it all the way?
Not yet, but soon I will be.
Yeah. And maybe you won't always, and maybe you need that sense of fear to protect yourself too. Maybe you need that thing that says, okay, I'm not going to go try to tackle this 6'4" guy. I'm going to let him give him a little more space until I get some more meat on my bones.
I definitely think it's a healthy approach.
Yes, because there's a lot more to life than hockey.
Yeah, absolutely. But circling back to the beginning, I think the life skills and stuff, and like Grayson, like I was saying before, the credit to you. I think this is going to help you get everything you want done in life going forward, even if it seems like kind of a ridiculous way to make that connection now. But just, looking back, you're building a good foundation.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming on. I was really fascinated by the documentary, so it was really cool to get to talk to you both about your firsthand experiences with all of it.
We really loved it, and we appreciate it, and we'll send this link out to everyone we know and everyone who's watched the film.
Absolutely. Do you want to tell everybody where they can get the film?
There's just the website, firstyearchecking.com, either with the number 1 first or spell out first, or you can also just go on YouTube and look up First Year Checking, and it'll show up for you. And we hope you really enjoy it, and we always love feedback. So contact us if you have any questions. And I've been on the forums going back and forth with people, so we love the interaction.
Awesome. Well, thank you both again. I do really appreciate it, and best of luck with the movie.
This is great. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank Michael and Grayson Messner one more time for taking time out of their busy schedule to come on the show and talk to me about their documentary, First Year Checking. It's available now. I highly recommend it. It was fascinating and eye-opening, and as a piece of entertainment, as a movie, it's narrated really well. The pacing is perfect. It paints the picture, gives you the information you need to know, and displays both sides or multiple sides of an argument rather than just being kind of a propaganda tool to sell you on one thing or the other. So for all that, as far as the movie making goes, A+, and the subject matter is fascinating. It was also interesting in the fact that it's a documentary where you can have your opinion, you can take sides, and there's reasons why or why not for everything, which makes it a compelling topic. But it's not a divisive thing we need to be at each other's throats for. There's way too much of that going on already. So first year checking available now. Check it out. Make sure you like and subscribe. We have a lot more interviews, a lot more new movie coverage coming your way. I was working on 2 unboxing videos just today. I think I have a third in the works even. I really want to get those out because I pre-ordered this stuff like a year and 2 years ago, and it just came out, and now it's been sitting in my closet until I get the time to make the video. So I really want to get those out there. Anyway, long-winded way of saying like and subscribe. You're not going to want to miss out. Also, make sure you listen to So Wizard Podcast every single week wherever you get your podcasts. SoWizardPodcast.com is your resource for reviews, recommendations, videos, merchandise, and more. So Wizard Podcast can also be found on Patreon, where for as little as $1 a month, you get multiple monthly bonus shows. And we love hearing feedback, so drop us a note in the comments, leave us something on social media. All the accounts can be found after the show and in the show notes. And on a more personal note, a good friend and I have an ongoing comedy comic series out. It's called Social Studies. It's a slice of life comedy comic about the high school experience. It's loosely autobiographical, but we like to take those elements and those stories and kind of boil them down to human moments so we get more of a universal high school experience, universal appeal, and then we like to exaggerate things for the comedic aspect. It's kind of written like a sitcom and presented like a 90s Nicktoons. So check that out at socialstudiescomic.com. Thanks.